Alrighty, algebra, we're going to work on section 10.6 today, which is genuinely, I think, the hardest section of the year. And I don't want to have that turn you off because many of you did really, really well in the last section, which I also thought was really difficult. So here, watch the video. Let's get a good starting point, and then we'll come into class and we'll start working on these problems. The best way to learn how to do them is genuinely practice. So, in the last section, we worked with problems that only had a 1 in front of this x squared, and now we have a different number in front of there. Okay? And so if I work down and I gave you the answer here as this parentheses, okay? And I ask the question, what changed? What's different? Well, first thing that's different is the a value in the front of the parenthesis is now different. And that also means back in the day, Brittany always remembered to put her x's in these two spots. And now this x has a 1 in front of it, but this x has a 2. And that's our difference. Okay, now, as we move on to these problems, we have numbers in slots 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are not actual numbers. These are just places. And the question I ask is, if we want two numbers to be multiplied together, we have to really think about where they go. Numbers 1 and 2 will never be multiplied together. And that's going to be the same as numbers 3 and 4. Okay? So that means when we work on these numbers, if you want two numbers to get multiplied together, you cannot put them in the same parenthesis because it's the only place where they won't be multiplied. Okay? So let's look at some examples. 3x squared plus 10x plus 3. Now, back in the day, we would make two parentheses, and we would still, or we would put an x in slots 1 and slot 3, and we are still going to do that. Back in the day, we also looked at the factors of 3, which are 1 and 3, and we're still going to do that. But here's the difference. This number right here, that 3, is also now going to be put as factors. So we're looking at the factors of 1. We'll call this A because that's the A place. And we'll call this C because that's the C place. And now, the reason why we play the dice game is to prepare us for this type of experience. How are we going to create the middle number 10 using these numbers? Okay? And I hope that you see that if we take that 3 times that 3, we get 9. And the leftover numbers are 1 and 1. And we'll take those two numbers and multiply them together and get 1. And if we add those up, that means that we get 10, which is what we wanted for that B. Okay? Now, when we look at these numbers, we see that A slots are for this 3. Meaning, we need to put a 1 here and a 3 here, or you could flip them because it doesn't matter in this step. Okay? But, looking down here, we needed this 3 to get multiplied by this 3. And if I put it here, that means that these numbers will never be multiplied together. So I have to put it in this parenthesis. Now, we wanted everything positive, so that's a positive 3. And then the only thing that's left over is this 1, which got multiplied by a 1. Okay? Now, if you get to this point, and you will make many, many, many mistakes here, and that's totally, totally fine. The reason why you go down this road, though, is so you can take a guess, take a stab, and check your answer. So I'm going to do the double distributive property, and I will get 3x squared from 1 and 3. I will get 1x from here and here. I get 3 and 3x to give me 9x. Then I get 1 and 3 to give me 3. And if I check the middle numbers, 1x plus 9x is 10x. And that means I've done this correct. We're good. Last step, which I said you'll forget frequently, is to set each of them these equal to 0. 1x plus 3, 3x plus 1. Set them both equal to 0. And here you get, after you subtract 3 from both sides, you get x equals negative 3. Here, you subtract 1, 3x equals negative 1, and then you divide by 3. X equals negative 1/3. Now let me check my time. This video could get long and I want to keep it at least pretty short. Now we're up to 5, so we're going to move on from this example here. if we have a negative here, I told you the best way to fix that problem is to change all of these signs. So I'm going to change this to positive 6x squared plus 2x minus 4 equals 0. Now, once again, I'm going to look at the factors. I'll do the 2 parentheses first with my x's. We get x and x, just like before. Now, I look at the factors of both of these. I look at factors of 6, which are 1 and 6, and I look at the factors 2 and 3. And then I'm going to look at the factors of 4, which are 1 and 4, and I look at the factors 2 and 2. Now, I see a negative, so I know subtraction is going to be used somewhere in these two signs. So I have to figure out a way from these numbers to create positive 2. Now, you have to do the trick of a number from the A column times a number from the B column. Have to do that trick. So I think the best way here is to do, oh, my keyboard just messed up. Here we go. I'm going to do 1 and 4 multiplied together here and here. And then I'm going to do minus 6 times 1. So that gives me 4 minus 6, which is negative 2, which I want. Now, I needed a negative here. So if you discover that that didn't work, you'd have to plug in your numbers or differently. So I need a 1 and a 6 in the first column. 1, and I'll put a 6 there. I could flip them, doesn't matter. But now I got to be careful. I needed this 1 to be multiplied by a 4, and I need it to be positive. So I can't put it here because they won't get multiplied together. So I will put it over here. And then here I'm going to put a negative 1 because I needed this to be negative. Like I said, mistakes happen, so we have to check our work. I get 1x and 6x give me 6x squared. That's good. That's what I needed here. Then I'm going to do 1x and 4 to give me positive 4x. Then I look at negative 1 times negative 6x, which is negative 6x. And negative 1 times positive 4 is negative 4 equals 0. Okay, now these become negative 2x, so that works. Last step, I got to plug each one of these equal to 0. 1x minus 1 equals 0, or just x minus 1, totally fine. And I get 6x plus 4 equals 0. Now, to take some time here, this ends up being x equals 1, and this ends up being x equals negative 4 over 6, which is negative 2 over 3. If you need help on these, we can work on those in class. Okay, now let me check the time again. Okay, I got 2 more to get through. Now, before we start here, we need a 0 on the right side. So in order for that to happen, I have to subtract the 6n over here. And I'm also going to subtract the 11 in the same step. If you want to take it as 2 steps, that's fine. So I get 21n squared plus 8n minus 4 equals 0. Now, I want you to pause, look at the factors of 21 and the factors of negative 4 here, so we know the subtraction, and see if you can get 8. It's a tough problem, but give it a try. Okay, so let's see how we did on our first attempt. The factors of 21 will be 1 and 21 and 3 and 7. So we got some big numbers, but that's okay. Factors of A. The factors of C will be 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. And now with some subtraction, I need to create positive 8. So I'm going to do, let me go 3 and 2. And then I have the subtraction, so I'll go minus 2 times, or 7, whoops, sorry about that. 7 times 2. I get 6 minus 14, which gives me negative 8. Uh-oh, I needed positive 8. So I'm going to flip these around, and I'm just going to write here, I'm going to go 7 times 2 minus 3 times 2, which gives me positive 8. So that one works. I get my 2 parentheses. I get Brittany's step in here. So I need, looking at these factors and these factors. So I need a 7 here. and I need a 3 here. That gives me 21x squared. I need the 7 to be multiplied by a 2, so I can't put it here. I have to put it here, and I need it positive because it was positive here. This here is a negative, so that means I need a negative 2 here. And the most important step, let's check to see if it worked. 21x squared plus 14x minus 6x minus 4. These combined for positive 8x. That means it worked. I solve by getting 7x minus 2 equals 0 and 3x plus 2 equals 0. I solve each of these, and this one gives me 2 over 7, which I can help you in class if you have problems. And this gives me negative 2 over 3. Same thing. Now, that was tricky, and once again, trial and error. It's all about trial and error. We'll work on this in class. This will take some time. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you. Vertical motion model we've worked with, but it's been a long time. In this model, which write down into your notes, okay, T stands for time, V stands for velocity, which is speed, S stands for starting height, and H stands for final height. Okay, sometimes we call this H of F. Okay, this is seniors like, oh, and I'm going over time. I'm trying to speed through this. Okay, so when we have this picture here, our time at the top, by the way, I have no idea what's going on here. Time at the top stands for 0, but we want to find the time at how long it takes to fall here. So that's our question mark. Okay, we use the vertical motion model. So our final height here will be 0. We go negative 16 t squared because we don't know t. Our velocity was 8 feet per second, so we go plus 8t. And our starting height was 48. In order to make this positive, we have to flip all the signs. There you go. Now, if you're ambitious, there is a greatest common factor that you can pull out here before you start this problem, but I want you to try this one on your own, and we'll see how it goes. Alrighty, so here's what I gave you. If you knew the common factors, you would end up pulling out a 4 from each of the terms. So you would get 4 parentheses 4t squared minus 2t. Actually, you could pull out an 8 from all the terms. Sorry about that. So you get 8 parentheses 2t squared minus t minus 6. Now, if you did it that way, you should get the same answer. So that's the people who did this. I'm going to do it this way. So I look at the factors of 16, 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. The factors of 48 give me 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 4 and 12, 6 and 8. And I have to find the factors using some subtraction to give me negative 8. Okay, so I'm going to go let me think about this so I don't take a... Okay, so I'm going to pick these factors here and here, and I'm going to go 1 times 24. Whoops. I'm going to go, sorry, 16 times 2 minus 1 times 24. That gives me 32 minus 24, which is 8. Now I needed this to be negative, so I better flip it. So I'm going to go 1 times 24 minus 16 times 2. Okay. Parentheses. Now this is the part that I really want you to get better at and takes time. I need this to be 16, so I need 1x and 16x. I need the 16 to be multiplied by a 2, and I need it to be negative, so I put it here. This, I need the 24 times the 1, so I'll go plus 24. And now I have to solve 1x minus 2 equals 0, and 16x plus 24 equals 0. Here x equals 2, and here x equals negative 24 over 16, which equals negative 6 over 4, which equals negative 3 over 2. All right, this is hard, and it takes a ton of practice. Okay, the video was long, and I apologize for that, but this is the last video of the year. So tomorrow come to class. There's no assignment built in here, and we will practice these all day. All right, see you tomorrow.